Welcome back, everybody, to the ROI Online Podcast, to our special episodes with Will Leach, Marketing to Mindstate series. Will, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Steve. I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Yeah, so our last conversation, we were really getting into talking about the aspects of marketing to mind states and how folks should be considering the state of mind that people are in when they're considering your product or service as a solution. You know, the biggest struggle I say that leaders have is really clearly communicating. It's so hard. It seems like it's so easy, but it's not. It's really hard to clearly communicate what it is that you can do to serve the people that come to you looking for help. And so today, I think one of the things that's really I loved about your book is what you talk about higher order goals. I really got a lot out of this. It keeps you focused on the right things. So let's spend some time in dissecting that. When did you have that epiphany? Why is it so important? And how can we start to really take it into consideration in our marketing?
Yep. So it was an epiphany because I think when I worked and I learned through graduate school, I never heard about people's goals. It just never came up in my program. And so it came actually the idea of why goals are so important. And I'll talk about this for a small business owner. It's to really understand what job you're really in. Like, what is your true business? What business are you really in? And the reason why I got there, I was over at PepsiCo. And of course, we talked about PepsiCo because that's where I learned a lot of this stuff. And we were talking about different brands of tortilla chips. So even at PepsiCo, we have Frito-Lay had three different types of tortilla chips. And so, just under different brands. And, some are flavored, some are not, some are Tostitos, some are not. And the idea was like, well, if you think if you're a tortilla chip manufacturer, if you think that's your job, why do you have three companies doing the same job? And it was this idea of thinking, well, because they deliver on different needs, is what we term need states, is what you hear, right? Well, they deliver on different needs. And when I started looking at the need states, okay, so I got to figure out these need states people have. You very quickly go into a psychology called goal theory. And that's where you get into the academic side of what are really needs versus wants. And when I was trying to figure out how to differentiate different types of tortilla brands, it was using goal theory to think through what are the real needs that people have for tortilla chips, and then figuring out how my brands uniquely satisfy those needs. Not what people want, but what they uniquely need. And that's when you get into higher order goals.
So when I think about that, there was a quote I heard the other day, and I can't remember where I heard it, but the real business you're in is not the service or product that you deliver, but it's the process and the experience that you deliver with that. And when you started talking about higher order goals, that started to really connect with me, because if we stay focused on those higher order goals, then our experience that we deliver will complement, make it feel congruent and safe, and they will feel more understood. How does that come into play?
Yep. So interesting enough, knowing what job you're really in, I'll give you a story about a friend of ours, a family friend of ours. So this dude started a pizza place about 2 decades ago. And to this day, Steve, it's the best pizza I've ever had. I don't know his secret. Actually, I do know his secret recipe. Finally, he gave it to us. But he was in the pizza restaurant industry for about 3 years, and he had to shut down. And he made a kick-ass pizza. It was a great product, but he thought his job was creating the best pizza around.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, that's not his job. His job, to your point, was to create an experience based upon a higher order goal that people had. And he just so happens to deliver on that through his crust was amazing. It is amazing. Through his pizza. And he thought he was in the pizza business. He was not in the pizza business. Looking back, now that I know what he's doing, it's like, if we could only, had this science back 20 years ago, I could have told him that actually he's not delivering pizza. He needs to ladder that up to a higher order goal.
Okay.
So the way that works is this. is that we all have goals in life. And a goal is simply defined as where you are today and the distance from where you want to be in the future. And that future can be tomorrow, 10 years from now, whatever. That's the psychological definition. So it's the idea of a goal is where you are today and where you want to get to at a later point. So the thing with goals is that we all have goals, and we have lots of goals, by the way. And I want you to know, and everybody out there listening, is every behavior, every decision you make has a goal associated with it. Every single one of them. Outside of you touching a hot stove and having a biological reflex, there is a goal of some kind associated with it. But how often do you think through what goals? Like, well, when I turned on this light, what was my goal? Or when I decided to go eat pizza, what was my goal? Like, nobody thinks about these goals. They're naturally subconscious. They drive you, but they drive all human behavior. So I always say, if you don't understand the goals of your customer, then you are never going to be able to drive that behavior. And ultimately, you want them to call your phone number, engage with you online, or whatever. So goal theory allows you to understand that like, how do you drive people to go after your business, to think of you? There are two types of goals. And this is a simple concept, but there are things called functional goals and higher order goals. And you talked about the higher order goals. Mm-hmm. Functional goals are the goals that people think about all the time. Like small business owners, like my friend said, my goal is to have a great pizza, and have quality ingredients. And my goal is to not overprice myself out of the market. And his customers probably thought the same thing. Their functional goals, what they want: great tasting pizza, close to home, good value, good menu variety.
Okay.
If you deliver on that, you are meeting in today's world, the bare minimum table stakes that a pizza place must make.
Exactly.
So if you know that, that's awesome. You got to do it, but that's not enough in today's economy.
Yeah. So that's cool. When people go, all right, what's your differentiator? What's the difference between your pizza and the other guys? A lot of times people don't have the conviction really. Well, our flour comes all the way from Greece. And so it's focused on one little ingredient, and salt. We use the salt from the Aegean Sea because of complement, right? And it's like, okay, but that's based on the assumption that I need pizza and I'm hungry and I want to not be hungry. And I would like to have an above average where I don't go, this pizza's okay. I want to say this pizza's great. But more importantly, there's other things going on, which is more the higher order goal in that conversation that we're neglecting and not taking advantage of a great opportunity.
And it's so easy. And frankly, back in the 60s and 50s, you could probably talk about functional goals and been fine because you didn't have that many competitors. Mm-hmm. That world is gone. Right. I mean, we have, I just read an article that said we have over 31 million small businesses. This is as of late last year in the US right now. Now, you can damn well guarantee with the new economy that even more businesses are being opened up because you have a bunch of corporations who have had layoffs. And what are these people going to do? They're going to open up some kind of a small business. Mm-hmm. So there's so much competition now that you can't just say my salt is from the Aegean Sea, not because it's not differentiated, but because it doesn't matter because somebody else's salt is from Greece or somebody else's salt is from Brazil. Well, then how do I differentiate salt? I don't know. I'm going to just go to something more meaningful. And that's where we get into those higher order goals that you just said. So remember these wants, these functional goals: value. I want it to taste good. I want it to be close. I want the menu variety. Those are all functional things. Those are what people want. What we need to think about as small business owners is, what do people need or what do they really want, right? Mm-hmm. Remember I talked about like needs-based stuff back at PepsiCo. That's where small businesses have to go. It's like, what do people really need? Those are what's called higher order goals. And it's really easy to get there. It's super easy to get there. Just not enough people know about it.
So I read this story about Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many, maybe 20 years. They only had like 17 locations 20 years in. And now they have all these other locations. But there was this moment where they declared, we don't have a coffee shop with beans from this area. We have a place where people come and get on the Wi-Fi and it's their second office or it's their second living room. That's when it started to sink into me. That was the higher order goal that they were acknowledging.
Yeah. No, and it's really easy to get there, right? So you could see the thought process, and actually it's in the literature that tells you how do you get from a coffee shop, hey, we sell great coffee, you know, whatever they were saying back then, to no, we have the second office. And really what it is, it comes down to two questions. So the way you do it is the way you get from these functional wants to emotional needs is first by saying, what wants do you have? You just ask your customers and they'll say things like, okay, I want great tasting coffee. I want it, you know, not to be overcharged, whatever, all the normal things you would say about a coffee shop. Then you just say, why is that important to you? And then all of a sudden you get into, well, why is it important for me to let's have comfortable chairs? Well, it's important to have comfortable chairs because that way I can sit here for a while and not feel like I have to leave the restaurant. Why is that? Just ask the second question. Why is that important to you? All you have to do is ask the same question twice. And then they say, well, it's because this is kind of like my office away from my office, my home away from home. That's the higher order goal. When you start messaging that we're your home away from home, no longer are you competing against other coffee shops. You're competing against lots of different places like libraries that a lot of small businesses, you know, go to libraries, right, to run their business. You're competing against, and now it's like you've opened up this incredible, huge kind of group of people that are looking for a home away from home or an office away from home. You now become a part of that much bigger pie. That's what higher order goals allows you to do. So in the pizza place, right? My example in the pizza place is, hey, why do you come to what are you looking for when you come to our pizza place? Menu variety, they may say. I would say, why is menu variety important? And they may say, well, it's so that, you know, we have the ability to where I can bring my kids in and we're not all fighting. We can agree upon something. Everybody can have something. Okay, why is it important for your kids to be able to agree on something? Well, then there's less fights. And so we as a family can connect. That's the need. Your job is to provide a connection for people or a place where people can connect. And you just so happen to do it through the use of pizza. And that's a part of your ambiance. That's how you differentiate your brand. If more people would talk about that, that just opened them up against, now I can actually compete against museums to connect. I can compete against coffee shops if I wanted to. I can compete lots of different things to get a place where my family can connect. And if small businesses will speak to those higher order needs, it opens up a massive amount of growth potential because you're meeting those emotional desires that drive our behaviors. Ultimately, it's the driving of behaviors comes from the higher order goal.
So now the marketers listening to this, or even the business owners having to wander into the swamp, that scary, stinky swamp of marketing, is, all right, what do I do with this information in my marketing materials? So I'm sitting here thinking of what images I would start to lead with. I'm thinking of the faces. I'm even thinking how my logo should somehow complement that as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So what's interesting about goals, and people get very nervous about, well, how do I we call it activation of the goal. How do I activate on this goal? If I know that I want to be the home away from home, or if my customers want to be the office away from their home, or that they want to have family connection, I think sometimes we think this stuff through, Steve. And here's the idea. If you want to activate that goal, if you want to get that goal to become important, you have to remind people that they have that goal, because we have lots of goals. Like I have lots of goals throughout the given day. So the way you remind them is show them the end experience. That's the way you do it. So you can show it through visuals or through copy. So for instance, rather than saying, we got great pizza and we've got great cheese or whatever, what you do is you show a family in an experience at your shop, at your pizza store, that feels like they're connecting. And so you do things like you make sure that you could see that the father and the kids are looking each other in the face, right? And you could see like maybe that they're co-holding a menu together, right? So they're ordering off of one menu. You could see that they're pulling the cheese together from the pizza, and there's laughter. So you're not focused so much on the pizza, which is really hard because that's as a pizza baker, that's what you want to do. But that's not what you sell. That's not what you sell. So you have to focus on the experience and the people. But imagine, that's just marketing. Imagine the experience now. You'd actually make your tables smaller if you had the money, and you'd want to actually lower ambient noise so that you can hear a conversation with your family, because it's not so loud. So you wouldn't have rock music in the background. You'd have it lower than that. You'd have the seats very comfortable so people are smiling. That's how you bring the experience to the messaging. But the point of the matter is, remind people what that goal is. And it's just simply showing the end result of that goal. The family is connecting.
Wow. So I think a lot of opportunities are missed when marketing focuses on the copy only, or the content, or the text.
Yeah.
It's very important. It's a lot of the place that everybody starts first, but the things that you just talked about, the atmospherics, the images, our brain, that brainstem area is an area that doesn't even process language. So it doesn't even read the text. And in just a second, it has already made a decision whether this is a safe place, what I'm looking for, or not. That's where marketing to Mindstates is really being impactful.
That's right. And like you said, it's even subtleties that otherwise some people just take for granted. But imagine, if you're going to do your own photo shoot, but even just think about the smiles, like too much joy is not connection. So showing too much happiness in those faces, actually, no, actually connection is more about intimacy, which connection can be funny, but imagine, showing a husband and a wife or a partner or whatever, and them looking directly into their eyes and having this moment. Like, those things matter. Those small details, the smile, the facial expression matters a lot. And I think if we can get everybody to think that marketing is not just showing your product, a great looking piece of pizza, but also showing that experience, but being mindful of those small little nuances that the book talks about, that you can make a very big difference in a small decision about, hey, let's get their faces a little bit closer to each other in the photo shoot, because I really want to establish connection. And good marketers and good agencies know how to do that. They would intuitively know that stuff. My job is to tell you that there's science-based evidence that says that is what you should be doing now.
Science-based evidence actually telling us that it's okay with the kids drawing in that Aegean salt on the table. How
could be.
See, I mean, it's like, to be able to show your product fitting into their lifestyle that they're wanting to have, and being a part of that, and not like this extra energy they have to weave in somehow.
Yeah, and you would know it as, who's the hero in that whole space. And I think sometimes as brands and as small businesses, we believe we're the hero because we live in our hero. We feel like it's our product. We put our heart and soul in it. But really, like, this, right? It's your product allows the family, or the father who decided to bring the family together, the mom who decided we're all going to go to the pizza place, to be the hero. And the pizza just allows for that moment. And if you can be associated with a moment of, like, you met a need, like a real need, they'll go back to you again and again and again. So I think that's one of the hardest things to do is when you have such a passion for your business that you want to talk about you and how good you are. And ultimately what that really does is it puts you in a place that you're devalued. What you want to do is establish that I know what you need and I can help you get to that need. But it's a hard transition to make. But once you make it and it becomes natural, sales just start flowing. It's just because you mean something more to your customers than you did before.
It reminds me of a commercial, and I don't know if it was Johnson & Johnson or P&G, but they had this commercial showing the little kids stumbling around, trying to get them dressed in the laundry room. The mom's trying to help, and they're falling down and crying, then learning to walk, and you've seen them skate and do these things, but in the background is the mom performing the functions of managing a family, right? And then all of a sudden you see this female skier just burst over the horizon of a mountain in a race, right?
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like real emotional, actually. It's like one of the commercials that got me a little wound up, because you could see the hopes and dreams of that mother and all of the ups and downs of the kid falling and learning and doing all these practice sessions and crying and being sore and taking that sweaty thing off. And yet that was the higher order goal being really, I mean, that was a beautiful representation of what you're talking about.
And that's why you had that emotional response that you just said. So imagine if every brand, and many brands don't do it, like you can name the brands and it's only one-offs, but those brands, you'll remember that commercial for the next 5 years because of that, right? Because it tapped into that higher order goal that all moms have, which is like, I want my child to live to their fullest, their dreams, their fullest, you know? And if you could tap into that, that's why you cry. That's why you cry in movies, right? It's all based in science. I love that example because they could have talked about we're cleaner, all those great things. We all know laundry's supposed to make things cleaner. That's great. But you'll never remember, you know, a laundry detergent ad that talks about how much we're 2 times whiter. Like nobody knows that. Nobody cares.
They could have bragged your kids' jerseys will be 2 times brighter as they lose that. Yeah. But all right, so that's great. And I'm a small business owner. I run maybe I run a fencing company or some sort of roofing company, and I don't have the luxury of an in-house marketing army that are already acclimated to this. How can I take advantage of it being what you said, 31 million businesses?
Yeah.
We're one of those. What do you do?
Yep. So I actually just had this conversation with a company that today, as a matter of fact, who they manufacture roofing accessories, right? So nothing you'd say super sexy. They have, he writes all the content. He's kind of the head of marketing, if you will, and he has 2 other people below him, right? But it's like a $100 million company. It's a big company, but they're a manufacturer. So he asked me the exact same question. And what he does have is an email list that he said, well, I'm scared, Will, that maybe that different section or different groups on my email list have different higher order goals. You're like, you should believe that. That's probably true, right? So the first thing what I told him to do is saying, you need to get some basic information from your customers. And in the case of him, he has an email list. He says, you know, it's a B2B list. And so he's like, you know, we get pretty good response. Like, I think I could actually just ask some of the questions. And I said, it's very simple. There's actually just 2 questions. And I've actually talked to you already about these things, Steve. I go, the number 1 question you ask people is, hey, as it relates to you buying roofing accessories, what are you looking for? That's the functional goal. Just ask them, what are they looking for? Just give me a list and let them write out that list. And then just ask them, hey, and if you can do this on the phone, you can do it on an email if you wanted to, and say, hey, on that list, tell me why those things are important to you. They'll write something down. And then the 3rd question is, now tell me why that's important to you. So it's basically 3 questions total. If you do it on the phone, it's even better because I think people like, I just answered that question, can kind of feel a little bit uneasy, but it's 3 questions. That 3rd question, right? Why is that important to you? Write that down or have them write that down. When you look at maybe about 20 of those, Steve, if you have just 20 interviews, you'll look at those and you'll start seeing patterns.
Themes.
Right? You'll go, okay, there are really 2 higher order goals across 20. Now, if you do it with hundreds, it's even better because you may find 3 patterns. That's the thing you have to do because now you start sub-segmenting your emails. You can start thinking about tailoring your offerings, your marketing, your brochures, your content to each of this. So for the roofing guy, one was their higher order goal is to make sure that that roof is so well done that the commercial owner of the building is not going to come back to them and say something was wrong. So their higher order goal is just don't come back to me. Like it's got to be done right. Another one he thought is there's a group of roofers out there that they want the most innovative products because they want to be seen as the most innovative in the industry. Totally different goal. So now you talked about your same roofing accessories, but about how technologically advanced they are. So that's now you can start segmenting your email list based upon that one criteria, and you have a same roofing accessories, but the way you position those accessories could change. And it's based upon 3 questions only. You just collect them, aggregate them into those groups.
Wow, I can see where in the sales process, if your marketing exercise had gone through that, then you would start to tailor your sales process of asking the questions to identify, you're in group A or group B. Then based on the discernment there, then we would start to tailor our sales message to complement that.
That's exactly where he took it. And I didn't naturally say, because I'm a marketer, but that's exactly what he said too. He's like, it would have been so much easier because he has big contracts, like huge commercial buildings. And that's where he took it to. And I think it's the natural way. I think this stuff works even better in one-to-one relationships when when you're really talking to somebody on these really big projects. Imagine the proposals you would write to that person. Very different feel if you understood that his real goal is to be felt as innovative versus he's trying to make sure that he has no hassles.
Yeah. So what's you have some workshops. Are these who are these workshops designed for? Would they be a good fit, or do you have two versions of your workshops? One for the higher order goal here, and one for the other higher order goal?
Yeah, no, so the workshops that I put on, goals are just one element, and they're for really small, medium businesses or agencies who are trying to think through how do you use these sciences to make our content and our messaging better. So goal theory is just one element of a 2-day process. It takes about an hour, hour and a half. But what we do is we actually make you as a participant go through this activity yourself. And you do it one time based upon a scenario where I give you the data. So I have data that I've done it for another company, and we all go through that data together. So those questions that I just asked you, Steve,
yeah,
we look at the data only over like 20 people. And we look at the data, and together we come up with the goals, and then we move on to the next stage. So it's really over the course of 2 days, to walk you through my data, but then I actually have homework assignments. Like, okay, now tomorrow, before you come in tomorrow, I want you to do it for your company. And we're going to talk about that. So what we found, in fact, with this roofing manufacturer, the accessory manufacturer, is that he went through the activities himself, and he came up with this one goal. And then when we talked through it together, he's like, Will, now that I talked to you, it's slightly different. It's the first time he'd ever done it. And we got to a different place. So it gives you the chance to try it out yourself, but still pressure test it with all these other people in a room or online with experts in this. And then we can show you, oh, you want to modify it. And he was so thankful because he's going to release a brand new product in about 3 weeks. And he literally on the spot started changing we looked at the launch email, in fact, and we started tweaking the messaging right there on the spot. It was a really cool experience to watch that come together, and just through a more structured way of thinking about messaging, especially goals.
So this is like the great place to start. If there was one thing out of your book that someone could adopt and immediately make an impact, it would be this acknowledgement and discernment of the higher order goals of the folks that you're wanting to serve or be a part of their lives, really. That's awesome. And so our next conversation is going to cover what, Will?
Yes. So today we talked about goals, which is really just think about where people want to go. But remember, you also think of it as you need an engine or fuel to get people to keep going after that goal. That's called motivations. It's a simple concept, but you can even amplify the effectiveness of your messaging by incorporating what we call motivational psychology. But I'll talk to you about that next week. But it's basically how to amplify people's desire to go after their goals.
Awesome. Will, where can people reach out to you, connect with you, hire you, participate?
Excellent. You can learn everything you want to learn, whether it's workshop or you want to buy the book, all on my website, mindstategroup.com. If you want to have downloadable papers, we've got case studies. We've got all sorts of free resources as well to learn more about the business. But ultimately, mindstategroup.com is the best way to interact. And LinkedIn is a great way too, because I do a lot of posts on LinkedIn to try to get the message out.
Yeah, so Marketing to Mindstates, the practical guide to applying behavior design to research and marketing. It's not just touchy-feely, there's science. Will Leach can blind you with marketing science. Will, thanks for being on the ROI Online podcast today.
Hey, thank you very much. See you next week, Steve.